bleep, bleep. And yes, Mrs May had decided to call a general election, which, if you think about what she said in the past, is perhaps surprising. I mean, here she is back in June last year when she launches her leadership bid.
Our country needs strong, proven leadership to steer us through this period of economic and political uncertainty. There should be no general election until 2020.
And here she is in September.
I'm not going to be calling a snap election. I've been very clear that I think we need that period of time, that stability, to be able to deal with the issues that the country is facing and have that election in 2020.
But I've been saying I thought she probably should have an election. I said this back in November.
I don't trust Parliament on this. Yes, the neatest, cleanest way to finish this off is for May to call a general election on the basis that Brexit means Brexit.
In an ideal world, what she would do, I think, now is to call an early general election to try and get a big working majority.
And it's a theme that we continued and we debated on this programme over the course of the last few months. I have to say, I perhaps am somewhat less surprised than most people by what's been announced today, because today, this is what she said.
Division in Westminster will risk our ability to make a success of Brexit, and it will cause damaging uncertainty and instability to the country. So we need a general election, and we need one now, because we have, at this moment, a one-off chance to get this done while the European Union agrees its negotiating position and before the detailed talks begin. I have only recently and reluctantly come to this conclusion. Since I became Prime Minister, I have said that there should be no election until 2020. But now I have concluded that the only way to guarantee certainty and stability for the years ahead is to hold this election and seek your support for the decisions I must take.
So it really is a snap election because it's taking place 6 weeks from today. And for a lot of voters in England who live in the counties, of course, it means they've got 2 elections coming up, because on May the 4th, all the English counties vote as well. So those voters are going to be asked to vote twice within the space of a single month. Tonight, I want to know from you, with 6 weeks to go, tell me, who would you vote for and why? I would also ask a little teaser. Why do you think she's called the election? Now, you know, there are lots of reasons for it, but what do you think? Is there some secret reason why she's called this election? So if you think, you know what, she's doing a great job, she says Brexit means Brexit, I'm really confident, I'm going to vote for her, call me on 0345 60 60 973. But if you think perhaps Jeremy Corbyn has a cunning plan and is going to pull a remarkable rabbit out of the hat over the course of the next few weeks, then of course you can text to 84850. You might think the Lib Dems, UKIP, the Greens or somebody else is going to come storming through and surprise everybody. In that case, you can tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC, and you can, of course, watch this on LBC's Facebook page right now. So she's called this election. Parliament will be dissolved on the 3rd of May, ahead of the election. They've already said, Downing Street, there will be no leaders' debates in this election, which I think is a bit of a shame. I was sorry there were so many runners and riders last time. It looked a bit like the first fence at the Grand National with all those different parties represented, but I think we've actually come to a point where people expect there to be leaders' debates. But of course, she goes into this with a lead of about 20 points. Now, what does that convert to? Is it going to be a majority of 80 seats? Is it going to be a majority of 150 seats? Well, none of us yet quite know. So I suppose many will say she's called this election because she's massively ahead in the polls. There'll never be a better opportunity. Labour is incredibly weak, and she gives herself legitimacy as Prime Minister, which she didn't really have. I know we don't, in theory, vote for Prime Ministers in general elections, but I think in reality these days we probably do. And she also can argue with Brexit that there's no more interference going to come from the House of Lords and everything else. So maybe that's why she called the election. But I am not so sure. You remember that at the time of the 2015 general election, the Conservative Party, in some of the marginal seats, were really, really worried about UKIP, desperate to stop UKIP breaking through in significant numbers into the House of Commons. And they spent a lot of money in those constituencies. Now, again and again, figures have been produced to suggest that in some seats, one in Kent in particular that I can think of, they've overspent the limits considerably. All of this is in the hands of the Crown Prosecution Service. In some cases, the police are still investigating. And although I've generally always thought the establishment never turns on itself, I've become convinced over the last few weeks that actually a whole slew of by-elections are bound to come up over the course of the rest of this year. And just think, Zach Goldsmith, a very popular MP for Richmond, called that by-election and lost it to the Liberal Democrats. I think the Tories were terrified of something breaking over the course of the next few months, by-elections to be held in September, certainly a dozen seats in which there was a possibility of a by-election, some say perhaps even as high as 20, and that for a government with a working majority of 12. And I have to pay credit to somebody on this. He was, for a period, a presenter on LBC. He's still a contributor, and he does Channel 4 News Politics every evening, and his name is Michael Crick. And to those who live and breathe and work in politics, he's not always the most popular person. In fact, Michael Howard said, when he was leader of the Tory party, the one thing he never wanted to hear was, Michael Crick's in reception and he wants to speak to you. He is an investigative journalist. He's the guy that turned the screw on the massive overspending in by-elections and at the general election. So perhaps this is a bit of a Michael Crick by-election. And, you know, you have to hand it to him. He's good at what he does. So I think that everything added up together, the fact they're in the lead, the fact that it's a chance for her to legitimise her position, to have a different manifesto, which certainly on areas like education is miles away from what David Cameron put forward back in 2015. But I think they were genuinely scared of what could happen in a series of by-elections. I wonder, I'm going to go to Martin in Ealing. Good evening, Martin. How are you going to vote on the 8th of June?
Hello, Nigel. To be honest with you, I am a UKIP voter, and I am going to be voting Conservative at this general election. I honestly and truthfully do not think that UKIP voters should, at this particular stage of Brexit, play party politics with the future of our country. We voted, 4 million of us voted last time, and we got one MP. I think what you, Nigel, which we follow religiously, and Paul Nuttall should say to all UKIP voters, throw your weight behind the Conservatives. If it is that difficult for you to do, just hold your nose and put your cross there so that we can save Brexit. We have worked very hard to get to where we've got to. Yeah. And I do not want to see us lose it at the last hurdle.
Well, you could argue, Martin, that one of the reasons that we had the referendum is that the impact of those 4 million votes is that we hurt the Labour Party very much more than we hurt the Conservative Party. I mean, seats like Warwickshire North, that the Labour Party had sort of number 2 on their hit list, and UKIP get 8,000-9,000 votes, and the Tories win it comfortably. So maybe, Martin, the effect these days of a UKIP vote is that it actually helps the Conservative Party, particularly in the Midlands and the North and areas like that. I would also say, Martin, that over the course of the last few weeks on this show, I have talked about some nervousness. I've talked about the fact that when it comes to getting back our fishing waters, the government won't commit to it. I've talked about the fact that she's happy, Mrs May, to keep us part of the European arrest warrant, which means the European Court of Justice ultimately still has some say over this country. I've said I'm very worried about what's going to happen with immigration when we hear talk of transitional arrangements. Is it possible, Martin, that Theresa May fights this election from an unassailable position, wins a big majority saying Brexit means Brexit, and then actually, because she hasn't got the 2019 deadline followed immediately by a general election, then starts to make a whole series of concessions, meaning that Brexit voters don't get what they want? And in those circumstances, isn't the UKIP voice and the UKIP argument that rather than going through years of negotiations, we should just get on with this? Isn't that an important voice?
The UKIP voice is very important, but at the end of the day, we are coming to a point where now we are having a general election, and the only people that's going to make any difference for us that we are going to have our Brexit is going to be the Conservatives. If the Conservatives lose a proportion, at the end of the day, the Conservatives seem to think that they have a 20-point lead in front of Labour. But if the Lib Dems and Labour do a pact where they don't put up MPs in certain areas, I think the Conservatives could catch a cold.
Well, Martin, I mean, you know, OK, but the Lib Dems and Labour absolutely hate each other. They can't stand the sight of each other. And the fact that it's a snap election and the fact there's only a few weeks to get nominations in, I would have thought, Martin, makes a deal of that kind extremely unlikely. No, nothing's impossible, but unlikely. But, Martin, I do repeat the point, and thank you for what you had to say, but I do repeat the point that the UKIP voice is very, very important, and a big majority for Theresa May, without that 2020 deadline, could mean all sorts of transitional arrangements and a very, very soft Brexit. But, I mean, those of you out there that disagree with that, please do come on, let me know. Everyone's going to have their say, including Sonia from Colchester. Good evening, Sonia.
Hiya, Nigel.
How are you going to vote, Sonia?
Tory.
Going to vote Tory. Do you normally vote Tory?
Well, I didn't in the last election because we had a strong Lib Dem here and Bob Russell was a good MP, but I will this time round, yeah.
So you're a Lib Dem voter switching to the Tories?
I've always been Tory, but because I live in Colchester now, I voted Lib Dem, but he lost to Will Quint, so...
Do you, I mean, Sonia, tell me, do you think, I mean, I presume you're a Brexit voter too, are you?
Yes, I am, yeah.
Yep. I mean, do you feel confident that Mrs May is going to deliver you the Brexit that you really wanted?
Do you know what, Nigel? I think she will, to be honest. I think that she's, you know, she's got a lot of backing from a few MPs on her side. So, yeah, and she has to because it's the will of the people. You know, 52% voted, and I think Jeremy Corbyn's going to be toast, to be honest. Labour's going to be toast. And I think UKIP supporters should vote Tory in this election to make sure that the Tory government has got a majority.
Do you know, Sonia, I heard that in the 2001 general election. I've heard it again and again and again, that what UKIP should do is back the Tories and they'll sort everything out for us. And the evidence over the last many, many decades is that actually very often they don't. But, Sonia, I thank you very much for your sincere support for our Prime Minister. Right now, you're listening to The Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's 7:15.
From the most cautious of politicians to a gambler rolling the dice, Theresa May opts for a snap general election. But how come the media knew nothing? How do Labour react faced with some of the worst polling on record? And what now for the SNP? Follow the story as it happens with me, Nick Ferrari, at breakfast tomorrow morning on LBC.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast, only on LBC.
With Hampton by Hilton, now open in Aberdeen.
Here at the Claims Guys, we'd like to offer this assurance to anyone worried by the deadline on PPI claims. There is still time to make your claim. Our experts will work fast to discover if you were ever sold PPI. And once we've completed your free PPI check, you can then pursue your own claim or let us do it for you. It's your choice. Even if you can't find any paperwork, just text the word EASY to 60777 and let the Claims Guys do the rest. Text EASY to 60777 now.
The Claims Guys.
Divorce. It affects every part of your life. You, your family, your home, your finances. And if you're a man facing divorce, perhaps even one you don't want, the situation becomes even more complicated. It's at times like these that you need a professional you can trust. Cordell & Cordell is dedicated to helping men in matters relating to divorce. Call now on 0330 60 60 161 or visit cordell.co.uk, office in central London. A partner men can count on.
When you're designing your new kitchen with Mobalpa, it's easy to get carried away. And we say, why not? With free fitting on all Mobalpa kitchens ordered during April, you can afford to spend a little more on the kitchen itself. After all, it's something you'll live with and love for years to come. To claim your free fitting, find your nearest Mobalpa kitchen studio at mobalpa.co.uk. Minimum spend and exclusions apply.
It's time for the Monarch Flight Sale, with thousands of flights on sale from £29 one way. Flight sale now on. Visit monarch.co.uk. Terms and conditions apply.
Come to Galliard for brand new apartments at Orchard Wharf, London E14 from under £400,000 with estimated yields of up to 4.3% and deposits spread over 2 years. Orchard Wharf is only a 5-minute walk from the DLR, where you can connect to the tube in 2 minutes and arrive at Canary Wharf and next year's Crossrail in just 4 minutes. We're priced to sell and will fully furnish your apartment free of charge. Join us on Thursday the 20th of April from 5 p.m. till 5 p.m. Saturday the 22nd of April at the Crown Plaza Hotel XL, London E16 1AL. Call 0203 770 6300 or visit galliardhomes.com. That's galliardhomes.com.
Oh, the garden's an absolute mess. It's my turn to have the cross-stitch crew round for tea and Battenberg. I'll have to get a landscape gardener in and a wildlife expert. It's a jungle out there. We could be eaten alive by those deadly flutterbugs. Oh, relax, relax. It's Trust a Trader. Marvellous local tradespeople who've been tried, tested and reviewed. All specialists in their areas, from landscape gardening to pest control. Oh, visit trustatrader.com.
trustatrader.com. The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
So if, like me this morning, you've just got off a long-distance flight and you don't know the news, Theresa May has called a snap general election and it's going to take place on the 8th of June. Just 6 weeks for now, and those of you listening in the English counties will be voting on the 4th of May in your county elections and again on the 8th of June in a general election. I am not, myself, particularly surprised. I've been saying for a long time I thought she had to do this, that there would never be a better opportunity for her to do it, but that also, as I said just a few minutes ago, there was this big shadow of willful breaking of the law by the Conservative Party in 2015 and indeed in some by-elections ahead of 2015. So desperate were they to stop the threat from UKIP. And I have some breaking news on this. I talked about Michael Crick earlier. Well, he's just broken this, that the CPS have told Channel 4 News tonight that they are considering charges against more than 30 individuals. Wow. So does this mean that some of the people who are hoping to be candidates for the Conservative Party in the general election could face the prospect during the campaign or shortly thereafter of actually potentially being arrested and charged? Does it mean that Mrs May knew this was coming down the tracks? And I did speculate 15 minutes ago that they knew something bad was coming down the tracks. They have a working majority of 12, facing perhaps a whole slew of by-elections between now and the end of the year, all of which, as we saw from Zach Goldsmith, losing Richmond, were unpredictable. Is she now going to throw these 30 individuals under a bus and say you can't be our candidates, and this is now the new clean Tory party? I don't know the answers to that, and I didn't stage manage this. I didn't know at the top of the hour at 7 that this was going to break, but it kind of makes real sense to me. Nathan Groves from Eton Wick on text says, roll on the 8th of June, the day we finally get to say farewell to Mr Corbyn. Yes, and you'd probably get McDonnell in his place. This sounds like the master plan to cancel Brexit. I envisage the formation of the Ramona Alliance Party, followed by endless doom and gloom predictions from your good self, says Les. I'm not doomy or gloomy, Les. I'm bullish and upbeat and optimistic, provided we do actually get Brexit, break free, and give ourselves the ability to open ourselves up to the 85% of the global economy that is not in the European Union. Another text. I'm a former Tory, now UKIP voter, but I'll be voting Tory again this time, purely because I think Mrs May is our best hope of getting the hard Brexit we voted for. And that's from Martin in Hemel Hempstead. I do understand that at the moment, the Prime Minister does have a lot of confidence in people because she gives very good speeches, but does she actually deliver? And when she was Home Secretary, when she gave those big barnstorming Tory speeches on how she was going to cut immigration, did she succeed? No, she failed completely. And I think it's important that there are voices there that make sure that this is kept on course. Steve in Croydon, 6 weeks' time, How are you going to vote and why?
I'm going to vote Jeremy Corbyn, Nigel. And the reason I'm going to do that is I think Theresa May's pretty weak calling an early general election. I think she wants to get out while the going's good because she's scared of Brexit when it kicks in big time with all the negotiations and everything. They've made a mess of the NHS. They want to privatise that.
Hang on, Steve. Hang on, Steve. It was Mr. Blair was the man that started privatising swathes of the NHS, wasn't he?
I don't know about that. But what I do think about Mr. Blair is he's not a genuine Labour person, whereas Jeremy Corbyn is. Mm-hmm. And people like, I think, Blair was a Tory, a plastic Tory in disguise. But I think someone like Jeremy Corbyn, he cares about minimum wage. He wants to put that up for the working class people. He's a genuine person. He's strong to have taken all those attacks for God knows how long, and he's still standing. He cares about the NHS. He cares about schools.
Well, let me ask you, Steve. Steve, let me ask you a question, right? Okay, yeah. You're a Jeremy Corbyn fan. Let me ask you a question. For 33 years, as a backbench Labour MP, he voted against every single European treaty, every single attempt for Britain to become more deeply inveigled in this European political project. He opposed it on the principled Bennite grounds that it meant a loss of democracy for this country. Can you tell me what Jeremy Corbyn's plan for Brexit is now?
Well, he'll have to go with the flow, won't he? Look, let's be honest, Theresa May and Boris Johnson...
What flow?
And the European... joining the European thing.
But where are this man's principles, Steve? I mean, you're selling me Corbyn as this great principled man that cares, and I'm saying to you that on the most important political issue of our day, he's turned his back on what he stood for 33 years, and he now is fighting this election. And I honestly, Steve, for the life of me, I don't know what his current policy on Brexit really is.
Well, do we know what Theresa May's is? I don't think anyone does. I don't think she's got a clue. I don't think any Tory's got a clue. But I think Jeremy Corbyn is a genuine bloke, and he will get things done to the best of his ability, and the best of his ability will be better than the Tories and the Liberals.
Well, like him or not, Steve, I'm afraid he's going to get absolutely mullered, I think, in these elections. He's going to have a terrible time. He doesn't really connect. He seems to represent a sort of very cliquey North London view of somewhat outdated socialism. Where I do agree with you, Steve, is I generally... I mean, obviously I've criticised him over Brexit, but I generally think... that he is not a sort of backbiting, backstabbing politician in the way that so many are. And I'm sure the fact that he genuinely cares is right. Steve, I get it. You're a Corbynista. I thank you for your call. I wonder, the opinion polls at the moment are showing Labour on 25%, 24%. Is that the bottom? Or could they fall further over the course of the following weeks? And I suspect they could. I'm going to go to Matthew in Heathrow. Matthew, how are you going to vote in 6 weeks' time?
Hi, Nigel. Well, you got it right again about the election. Basically, I've always been a Conservative voter, but I'm not happy with the way they've been handling the Brexit. And basically, I was a Remainer, accepted we've got to get a better deal, a new deal in Europe. So I'm either going to vote UKIP or the Liberal Democrats, just so because I want the next government to be a coalition, because really all the parties should be involved. I want to try to stop the breakup of the UK, because I could see the way the Conservatives are going, not listening to the other parties. If everyone's on the table, we're going to get a better deal, and it's the country's future, and that's why.
OK, well, I'm just curious, Matthew, because for a Remain voter to consider voting UKIP in this general election it's quite a leap in a way, isn't it?
Well, it's because I see at the moment it's Labour Conservative. Obviously, Conservatives got them all, but we've got to we need a coalition. So basically, we need the Remainers to maybe vote for the Liberal Democrats, and we need the Leavers to vote for UKIP. So that way, everyone could be involved in the negotiations if it's a coalition government. And, I mean, what might secure my vote? Are you actually going to be standing? Are you ready to...
Oh, Matthew.
Even as an MP, I know.
I keep being asked this. I keep being asked this question, Matthew. I keep being asked it, and I won't answer you right now, but I thank you for your call and your thoughts, because I'm going to go to Scott, who's calling from Thanet, who I suspect might be asking a similar question. I don't know. Scott, good evening.
Good evening, Nigel. Yes, he's just gazumped me, right there. ringing you. We actually had a dinner together in Broadstairs a couple of years ago. I don't know if you remember, but we had a political dinner which you was invited along to.
I was, yes, I was.
You was, yeah.
And it wasn't quite as windy that night as it sounds now in Broadstairs tonight, so the line's not great. So give us your question, Scott, and I'll do my best to answer it.
Well, I was going to ask, obviously, as you say, UKIP, it's an important voice right now. You did say, I think it was about mid-March on the politics show that you might, you don't know, you might. So you just said to the man you're not going to tell him. But, obviously everyone in South Fan at the moment is asking whether or not you will.
Right, Scott, I think it was a rotten line, but it's nice to hear from you again. And I will answer that question by saying I haven't decided yet. I will spend the next couple of days working it out. There's a bit of me that wants to, because I do feel that the conduct of one of my opponents in that general election was frankly absolutely bloomin' disgraceful, and I think justice should be done in more than one way. So there's a big bit of me that says I want to do it. There's another bit of me that says, I spent all those years in politics battling away for Brexit, and I'm still leading a group in the European Parliament, and that European Parliament is going to have a bigger say over the Brexit process than the UK Parliament, because under Article 50, they have the final right of veto. Where best could I serve Brexit? Could I serve it by running and trying to win that South Thanet seat, or could I serve it best by continuing where I am, leading a group in the European Parliament? Scott, I've got to make that decision, over the course of the next couple of days, and I will. I certainly haven't made it yet. Tim on Facebook says, vote wrong, and we could end up with a Labour-Lib Dem coalition. I don't think that would go too well. The numbers, Tim, do not back up that assertion at all. Farage says the worst thing for Brexit negotiations would be a coalition government. If you look at the opinion polls, and I know they can be wrong, but can they be that wrong? I think we're looking at probably a massive Tory majority. I think we're looking in many ways at the least contested general election we've had in modern times. Janice says Jeremy Corbyn doesn't know what he's doing. Tories all the way. James says May was useless as Home Secretary. I don't think she will deliver Brexit. And Mark says May Day in June, time to vote Conservative to give Theresa May the mandate to implement Brexit once and for all. Well, Mark, if she really meant it, you would certainly be right. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's 7:30 and time for the news with Rupert Bartier.
The Prime Minister is being accused of opportunism after calling a snap general election for the 8th of June. Speaking during his nightly show here on LBC, Nigel Farage says there are three key factors behind the decision.
Everything added up together. The fact they're in the lead, the fact that it's a chance for her to legitimise her position, to have a different manifesto. I think they were genuinely scared of what could happen in a series of by-elections.
Labour and the Lib Dems have welcomed the news, but Scotland's First Minister Nicola Sturgeon says the new vote is opportunistic. LBC weather. Clear and frosty for most into the evening, cloudy with light rain in the far north, a low of 3 Celsius. Tomorrow, a mix of cloud and sunny spells, light showers possible, a high of 15 degrees.
LBC Travel, good evening, I'm Andy Lake. Starting off on the M25 then, anti-clockwise, it's queuing from junction 26 for Waltham Abbey to 24 for Potters Bar. A lorry's broken down there, 2 lanes are still closed. Clockwise also queuing from junction 24 for Potters Bar to 26 for Waltham Abbey. That's after a collision earlier. In Poplar, the Blackwall Tunnel still very slow, that's southbound after a breakdown earlier on today. Into Hatton now, the A30 is closed westbound because of a collision between Hatton Cross and the Clock House interchange. It's been brought to a standstill, actually. It's also causing queues on the North Circular from the Crooked Billet interchange. And in Manchester, the M60 is slow anti-clockwise approaching the Swinton interchange. A serious collision there has closed the inside lane of 3. Onto the tubes, the Central Line has severe delays still this evening. That's westbound after an issue at Chancery Lane earlier. For more real-time traffic updates, go to lbc.co.uk.
This is LBC.
Oh, the garden's an absolute mess. It's my turn to have the cross-stitch crew round for tea and Battenberg. I'll have to get a landscape gardener in and a wildlife expert. It's a jungle out there. We could be eaten alive by those deadly flutterbugs. Oh, relax, relax. It's Trust a Trader. Marvellous local tradespeople who've been tried, tested and reviewed. All specialists in their areas, from landscape gardening to pest control. Oh, visit trustatrader.com.
Trustatrader.com. Westway.
It's the Cared For used car event, now on at Westway Nissan, with up to 33% list price savings on a huge range of quality used and nearly new Nissans. Plus, selected models get up to 2 years free servicing. And at Westway, there's an up to £750 finance deposit contribution. Hurry, for way more Nissan value than you bargained for. Don't miss Westway Nissan's Cared For used car event.
Google Westway Nissan today.
Representative 9.9% APR finance, subject to status. Free servicing only when you buy with Nissan Finance.
An amazing kitchen, an amazing bathroom, an amazing hallway. At Amazing Tiles, our range of porcelain, ceramic and bespoke tiles can make any home amazing. Right now, buy 5 metres or more of plain tiles and get a third off the retail price. Visit our showroom and warehouse at Park Royal Road, London, or call 0208 83 84 900. Make your home amazing at amazingtiles.com.
Whether you're looking to get to Barnet with the wind in your hair or to hammer down to Hammersmith, if Piccadilly's like a circus or you need to trim your time to Shepherd's Bush, when you want to wing it to the Angel and beat the herd to the Elephant and Castle. Whether it's tapping into the knowledge or breezing down the bus lanes, no one knows London like black cab drivers. My Taxi, the black cab app.
Are you confused about PPI? At PPI Hotline, we want to give you the facts. There is absolutely every reason to check you had PPI. Even if you think you never have, we can help you find out, as you could be owed thousands. And now there's a deadline. We just need the name of the bank you've had loans or credit cards with, and we'll check for free. So find out now if you're owed by texting CHECK to 82222.
PPI Hotline. Text check to 82222.
Leading Britain's conversation. The Nigel Farage Show. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag #FarageOnLBC.
Snap general election, and it's taking place on the 8th of June. Everyone's surprised. I'm not particularly. I always thought politically it would offer Theresa May massive advantage, but I also have been thinking for some time that actually there are going to be a lot of by-elections coming down the track because of bad behaviour and overspending by the Conservative Party in the 2015 general election. And that's rather been backed up tonight with the Crown Prosecution Service saying they are considering charging 30 individuals. And that has to include sitting members of Parliament too. So that crisis is serious, and I think May feels by holding this election she can put it behind her and say we are the new, clean Tory party. One other story, which may have been relegated today given all that's going on, and I guess over the course of the next 6 weeks we may not feature on it very much. I said to you that I'd been in Italy for the weekend. Well, I was. I was up on the Adriatic coast, but in southern Italy it's been quite a dramatic weekend. 8,500 refugees and migrants have been plucked from small boats over the past 3 days, the Italian Coast Guards told CNN today. 13 dead bodies were recovered, including a pregnant woman and an 8-year-old boy, but it's not known, of course, how many others may have drowned before vessels were sighted. Remember, thousands of people have drowned over the course of the last few years. It's the summer. I've said on this show over the course of the last few weeks that relations with Turkey have been breaking down. You will see that Erdogan won his referendum for vastly increased presidential powers. He's already flexing his muscles. He's saying, unless you give free and easy access to the European Union for our 77 million Turkish population, the deal for us to hold back migrants will effectively be broken. I think that this whole issue, this whole European migrant crisis, is going to become absolutely enormous over the course of the next few months, and may well have big implications for elections taking place across the whole of Europe. I mention it. I know it's not what we're discussing tonight, but this will not go away. So back to the basic question of who would you vote for and why in this general election, and your messages flooding in on Facebook. Tim says vote wrong and we could end up with a Labour-Lib Dem coalition. I don't think that would go too well. Richard says, I will vote Labour when they start making the working man's life better. Not going to happen, is it? Conservative landslide all the way. Brian says Theresa May has absolutely no competition in this. It does look a bit like that, Brian, I have to say. Dave says, I'm UKIP through and through, but I know UKIP will not be able to field a strong enough government. There is no way on this earth I would vote for Labour, so it's going to be the Tories until UKIP can strengthen their team. And Christine says, I'll be voting Labour. Can't live through another Tory government. Dave is probably voting Tory. Labour over a mess. Lib Dems practically non-existent. UKIP come close, but now the job is done. I don't think the Lib Dems are practically non-existent. In fact, what Tim Farron has managed to do since the referendum is to get the Lib Dems onto a very, very active campaigning basis. They've been doing very well every Thursday in little by-elections that take place for district councils, county councils, unitary authorities. They've done quite well raising money. He's positioned the Lib Dems as the party of the Remainer, of the I can't live with this result, it's got to be overturned, we must have another referendum. And however much I disagree with that position and believe it to be fundamentally, well, not liberal or democratic actually, but that's not really the point. Farron actually has done rather well recently with the Liberal Democrats, and they'll be pushing very, very hard in parts of the southwest of England, which is where Farron was today. They'll be pushing hard in parts of southwest London. And I would expect the Lib Dem vote to go up from the last general election and for them to win some more seats. Maybe not that many, but I think they will win some more seats. I'm going to go next to Mark in Haverfordwest in Pembrokeshire. What are you going to do, Mark, in this election?
I really don't know, Nigel. I haven't got a clue anymore.
Right.
To be quite honest about it, I just like to put something to you, really.
Yeah.
Which I'm a little bit disappointed. I met you, I think, in Neath, Port Talbot last year.
Yeah.
You had a meeting up there, and I attended that meeting. So we only just seen each other. I was seeing you were smoking your head off.
Was I? Well, that sounds about right, Mark. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Right. But the thing is, what I'd like to say anyway is that politics, as far as I'm concerned, I had no interest at all until you, as party leader of UKIP, raised my blood and got me to become an addict, basically, on what you were saying. It made perfect sense as regards to where our country has stood since the EU membership has grown into something else it was never formed to be. And I became an avid supporter of you and watched everything from you. But the thing is, what I find strongly, well, put it this way, you were always 100% saying that I will fight to get this country out of the EU,
yep.
You know, free of it, because that was your main goal. You were in it for 20-odd years before you were before so, and you were going to fight tooth and nail until you got this country out. When you brought the country, you woke up everybody, really, and everybody that you spoke to, your name was always mentioned, and that was the one that carried everybody along, really, on a wave. And then you decided you left, and you said, well, look, I've done my job, and I've got the referendum, and that does it. But what this has done now, I think, to be quite honest, I feel that maybe what you've actually done is killed Brexit completely, because everybody followed UKIP because of you. You made people believe you, you know what I mean? And there's nobody in UKIP that can do it. Only you. That's the only person I see. But you seem to have pulled away, and good luck to you in all respects.
Well, Mark.
Where we stand now, I feel, is that we could end up with, like, coalition governments, and that would be the end of Brexit completely.
Well, Mark, I don't think there is any prospect of there being a coalition government at the end of this general election. And by the way, if you think there is, then you know you've got a lot of you can make some real money on that, because you get a very, very good shade of odds from any bookmaker on it. My position, Mark, was we'd won a referendum that I'd spent nearly a quarter of a century pushing for, and I felt I'd done my bit as leader of the party. But I was then, and I am still today, absolutely committed to us getting Brexit, for it to actually happen. And the dilemma, Mark, I've got is how best do I do that? Do I do that by putting my name forward to try and get into the Westminster Parliament, or do I do that by being the leader of a group in the European Parliament with actually an unparalleled platform in terms of speaking time and everything else that I can do? I don't know, Mark. I'm not sure where I'm most effective, but I want to reassure you that I haven't walked away, I haven't gone away, and I'm absolutely dedicated to us getting back our right to run our country, make our laws, make our friends around the world, and control our borders. So, Mark, keep faith, please.
Just the last thing. Let me just say this.
Yeah.
if you don't come together now to bring all the people back together like you did when it was UKIP, over in the EU Parliament, fine, okay, but the people over here don't know about that. You know, we find what we know on the internet. But leading up to this election, I feel like this is a referendum all over again. You know what I mean? And I think you're the only one that can lead it to get everybody, because they'll only believe you.
Mark, you're very flattered by those comments, and thank you very much indeed for making those points as passionately as you did. I've got a call from Vienna. Femi in Vienna, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Farage.
Good evening. You're an overseas UK voter, yeah?
Yes.
Yep, OK. So how are you going to vote?
I'll be voting for the Lib Dems.
Yep, OK. Do you normally vote for the Lib Dems?
I did last time, but prior to that I was voting Labour, but I've been kind of disillusioned with respect to Corbyn in relation to Brexit.
OK. And, you know, I mean, I did say a few minutes ago that I thought the Lib Dem vote would go up from what they got in the last general election, and they would probably win a few more seats. You, of course, would agree with that. What is your main reason for wanting to vote Lib Dem?
Well, having studied EU law and therefore knowing what the single market is, I know that I know the economic effect of being out of it. Things like, for example, things like mutual recognition, harmonisation, these are terms that weren't even mentioned during the referendum.
Horrendous, horrible terms, aren't they?
Horrendous. For example, mutual recognition means that we can sell our products in exactly the same way across the 28 member states, whereas once we're out, countries are under no obligation to accept our products if they don't meet their rules. We're at a significant competitive disadvantage if we're no longer in the single market.
Femi, I was
a
a trader, Femi, before getting into politics. And do you know what? When things are different, you often finish up with more business, more competition, and a better price for consumers. So there is a counter-argument to that.
There's a counter-argument to the fact that if we're outside of the single market, if we wanted to sell our products in all 28 member states, we'd have to sell our product in 28 different ways, manufacture our products in 20 different ways.
Fantastic.
Completely blowing up our marginal costs.
How exciting.
It would make it makes it far less profitable to actually trade across the EU. And now you were saying a couple of minutes ago how you were unsure as to whether or not you wanted to be an MEP or an MP because you're not sure whether or not you'd be able to serve your country more as an MEP or as an MP.
Yep.
Don't you think that typifies exactly the issue that because by leaving the EU, by getting rid of the 73 MEPs that the UK currently has in Europe, that's 10% of the European Parliament. We're cutting down our power on the international scale. The very fact that you yourself
Femi, outside of the European Union, we get back our ability to negotiate trade on our own basis with the 85% and growing of the world economy that is not an EU member. But you are a Euro fanatic and you're voting Lib Dem, and I think, actually, you're with the right party. It makes total logical sense. Right now, you're listening to the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's 7:45.
Coming up at 8 on LBC, Clive Bull.
Is the calling of a snap general election cynical, opportunistic, or is Theresa May right to seek a stronger democratic mandate for her plans?
Clive Bull on LBC.
Man, that Hypnos bed is comfortable. Time to get up, work to do. Shower, tick. Shave, tick. Dressed, next question. Time for all-you-can-eat brekkie with the fellas. Bacon, sausages and more bacon. Probably even some beans. Today is a big day. Because you are scaffolders. Whatever your story, this is a great place to start. Premier Inn. Premier You.
Breakfast prices and options may vary. Exclude certain locations.
Here at the Claims Guys, we'd like to offer this assurance to anyone worried by the deadline on PPI claims. There is still time to make your claim. Our experts will work fast to discover if you were ever sold PPI. And once we've completed your free PPI check, you can then pursue your own claim or let us do it for you. It's your choice. Even if you can't find any paperwork, just text the word EASY to 60777 and let the Claims Guys do the rest. Text EASY to 60777 now.
The Claims Guys.
eBay has every kind of car part for everyone from beginners to the real experts. Well, that should stop them squeaking.
Brake pads.
And that's the engine sorted.
Motor oil.
And that's the handling taken care of.
Alloys and tyres.
And that means I've saved myself a few quid.
12-foot snooker table for the spare room. Shop eBay's unbeatable selection of car parts and accessories. The ultimate fix the car like a hero shop.
People who've had their dental implants at TDC Implant Centre have had their lives transformed.
I had problems with other dentists who said it was just too complicated.
I'm Dr. Michael Zivitz. Even if your own dentist has told you nothing can be done, talk to us. Our award-winning treatment could give you a life-changing smile. In just one day, we'll give you a full set of beautiful teeth fixed in your mouth. Around 3 months later, we exchange your fixed teeth for a new permanent set.
I just wanted to get it sorted properly so I had permanent teeth again.
So see smileinaday.co.uk.
The high-quality kitchen you've dreamed of at a price well within your budget. That's Room Sense.
That's Room Sense.
Right now, Room Sense is offering stunning kitchens at half price, with free appliances worth over £1,000. See roomsense.co.uk.
Quality at a price you can afford. That's Room Sense.
Minimum spend applies.
The Multi-York Spring Sofa Sale is now on, so don't miss big savings of up to 40% off all sofas, chairs, living room and dining ranges. And for a limited time only, there's also an extra 10% off everything. Visit us in-store now or go online at multiyork.co.uk. The Multi-York Spring Sofa Sale, now on.
Leading Britain's conversation. The Nigel Farage Show. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
Well, this snap general election is certainly leading to a lot of opinion, a lot of comment. And Gillian says voting for UKIP will give Labour and the Lib Dems an advantage. Vote for May so she can deliver Brexit without Remainers blocking it. Gillian, it's probably the opposite, actually. I think probably the UKIP vote, not probably, certainly the UKIP vote at the last election hurt Labour far more than it hurt the Conservatives. It's rather a myth to think that. But, you know, a lot of people do think that. I mean, Jacqueline says everyone who wants Brexit has to vote Conservative. No other party will see Brexit through. And this is what May's done so well. You know, don't forget, Jacqueline, she voted Remain. On the biggest constitutional question of our lifetime, she voted Remain. She gives very good speeches. She says some good things on the platform. I've praised her for what she's said. And then, when she's not on the platform, and we get the briefings that I'm hearing in Brussels as an MEP, such as we're prepared to trade away fish in return for a trade deal on goods and services, I start to get worried. But she has, to date, sold herself very well on this. John on Facebook says Corbyn can't sort out his own party, let alone the country. And Tom is really worried. He says the thing I really worry about is the Remain camp will all vote for Farron and try and cause another referendum. Tom, they won't all vote for Farron, but the Lib Dems will do a bit better than last time. Of that, I'm pretty sure. William in Glasgow. Politics there, fascinating as ever. How are you going to vote?
I'm going to vote for the Scottish Conservative and Unionist Party.
That's Ruth, led by Ruth Davidson, who I think any objective analysis would say has had quite a good run.
I think she's been a decent opposition, the kind of main opposition to Nicola Sturgeon, certainly in Hollywood, and I think it'll be a good point for the people of Scotland to show whether they've got the appetite for Indy Ref 2 or not. I think it couldn't come at a better time, maybe not for England, but for Scotland certainly, because it's our chance to show that we have no appetite for a second independence referendum, and if they return another 56 people, then Scotland, they're going to put the gun to their head again. They've missed the bullet the first time. They've put the gun again to their head. And to be honest with you, as a Scot, they will deserve all that they get.
Yeah, I mean, William, there is
MPs.
There is lots of polling here that suggests that actually the appetite for a second Scottish referendum is very low indeed.
No chance.
You know, and by the way, I hate the word independence referendum. It's not, because they want to be part of the European Union. I suspect, William, that the Conservatives are going to do a lot better in Scotland than they've done for a very long time. And how do you vote normally, William?
I voted Conservative since 1987. I first voted for the late, great Margaret Thatcher.
Right.
She's been a hero of mine throughout.
I tell you what,
my days.
if you walk into a pub in Glasgow after this show and say very loudly that I'm a Margaret Thatcher supporter, what sort of response would you expect, William?
I've been a supporter for over 30 years. I thought the poll tax was one of the fairest tax that was ever introduced.
Yeah, but my question was, there aren't many Glaswegians who openly admit to being Thatcherites, are there?
They have a chip on their shoulder from something that happened 50, 100 years ago. You know, they go back to the days of coal. If you want coal mines, bring back the steam engine. I'm sorry, the horse and cart was a great invention, but when the motor car came in, it was outrageous. If you want to go back to coal and coal miners, bring back the steam engine and get rid of electric and diesel.
William,
Thatcher cleared the way to
William, hugely entertaining, and thank you very much. And I have to say, I've spoken in public meetings in Glasgow, and I've travelled around Glasgow, and I haven't met many Thatcherites as strong as William. Though, interesting point, in the it's a long time ago, the 1955 general election, the Conservatives got more votes in Scotland than any other political party. It seems almost phenomenal, doesn't it, that they were wiped down just to one seat in the House of Commons, and maybe Ruth Davidson's party are going to do much better in 6 weeks' time. Craig in Newcastle, how are you going to vote, Craig, in hard Labour territory?
Oh, it's definitely Labour.
Yep.
It's always going to be Labour, and it always will be. A lot of people are forgetting Jeremy Corbyn is a face of a party. He's not the party. And it's a case of things might start getting sorted if people stop seeing it like that.
Craig, can I just ask you? You said Labour and it'll always be like... I mean, would you back Labour regardless of its policies and regardless of its leader?
Not always. It depends on how I would see things at the time. But I mean, so far I've always voted Labour since I was old enough to vote.
OK, well, the Labour Party have big majorities in your part of the world, but there are seats up there, seats like Hartlepool, where their majorities are very, very small. And if the polls impact, Craig, on this election the way that some suggest, it will be Labour-held seats in the Midlands and the North, where they haven't got very big majorities, where Corbyn is doing pretty badly. And I do get your point, Craig, that you're voting for a candidate, you're voting for a party, and not just for a leader. But, Craig, I just feel that our electoral system has become a lot more presidential, and that actually who leads the party matters, Craig, to voters, a lot of voters, perhaps more than you. But listen, I thank you very much for your call. Amir in Birmingham, how are you going to vote?
I'm going to vote Conservative.
Yeah.
And I was calling because I felt like you were being a bit sheepish about voting. I wanted to see what the smart play was in your view, because the way I see it, obviously the Lib Dems are still talking about not triggering Article 50. Labour's eating themselves on the single market.
Mm-hmm.
Conservatives are basically the only party that have somewhat of a plan going in. And I think I trust Theresa May better than I do the other two to actually make a workable deal. So, but I feel like you're being quite... I want to know what the smart play is from your view.
Well, the smart play would be, actually, Amir, to have a different electoral system where we had two ballot papers and you could vote for your local MP, but you could vote for a second opinion that you liked. I think electoral reform is massively overdue, but we're not going to get it in 6 weeks' time. Indeed, we're not even going to get the new boundaries that were proposed in 6 weeks' time. I've taken the view all the way through that you should vote for what you really believe in. My family support Crystal Palace, not because they think that they're actually going to win the Premier League, although 35 points, they may well stay up now. But, you back Crystal Palace because that's your team, as opposed to backing teams who you think might win the Premier League this season. So I believe in principle. I have been standing and voting for UKIP for a very, very long time because I thought that best represented my view. We've had people on tonight who say, well, we were UKIP, but we now trust Theresa May to deliver Brexit. I wouldn't be so sure. Jennifer in Birmingham, my last caller of the evening. Jennifer, what are you going to do?
I just, I'm so angry. I've always been a Liberal person, always gone with Labour. The past 2 years, with everything that's gone on, I've come more over to UKIP. I've listened to you more. I listen to Alex Jones. Or, you know, I am really sort of clued up. But I think what Theresa May has done today is an absolute disgrace. And the reason being is she's holding us Brexiters, right, who went out on June the 23rd, turned up, and she's holding us to ransom because she's saying to us, the only way you're going to get Brexit is if you vote Conservative. Now, a lot of us don't like Conservative. We don't like what they've done to the disabled and the sick. Jeremy Corbyn, I call him a wet lettuce.
Jennifer, I'm going to have to stop you there, but I do take your point that Mrs May will sell this in the election as vote for me. I'm the only one that can deliver Brexit. Well, my final thought on all of this today is that the logic for holding this election has been there for months, and yet they didn't do it. They've done it now, frankly, to avoid embarrassment. We hear tonight the news that perhaps up to 30 people could be arrested by the CPS for massive overspending and breaches of electoral law in a general election and by-elections before it. That, I think, is the real reason that they've done it. Mrs May will tell you Brexit means Brexit. Mrs May will tell you if you want it delivered, they're the only party you can possibly vote for. She will win a big majority, and then all the pressure will be off because the Brexit deadline of 2019 will not be followed by a general election just 1 year later, and she'll go soft. That's my view. 6 weeks to go. You've been listening to the Nigel Farage Show on LBC. I'm back tomorrow from 7. Coming up at 10, it's Ian Collins, but up next, it's Clive Bull.
Thank you, Nigel, and we're going to continue this conversation. It's the one that people didn't really see coming, but we are heading towards another general election. Theresa May says the snap election will bring strong leadership for Britain as we negotiate Brexit. Jeremy Corbyn says he welcomes the news